And there we are. We should be out.
And it says we are live.
There we go. There we go. Took a little bit of messing about, but it's done it eventually.
Yes, it did. It works.
Okay, oh, that's half the battle. That'll do nicely. And how is everyone?
Top of the world, man. Top of the world.
That's good to see. Just get the video up in, myself so I can see what's going on. Because I'm sort of going blind on this one. Okay, well, there's comments. Oh, there we go. People can see us, so that's half the battle. Hello there, Beth. Hello there, Mags. I'm sure there's more people in the chat. If you can keep an eye on the chat in real time, that'll be fantastic.
We got Paranormal People, Jillian Daniels, Steve Yarwood.
Hello there, Steve. Okay, hi Jill, hi Steve, hi Beth, and hello there, Mags, and anybody else who might be out there. I'll give it a second or two, and then we'll fly in with various bits and bats and bits and bobs. Seeing people in this chat, not seeing it in the YouTube yet, so.
I can see it in the YouTube. It's popped up. Hi,
Fantastic.
Jane.
Hello there, Jane. Hope you're well. It's nice to get the hellos out of the way.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, well, the reality of this one is that I sent a list of topics to Lindsay there, Steve, and obviously you weren't privy to that information, so you'll be flying by the seat of your pants. So you'll have to be, you're going to have to be on your game, as they say, to deal with this one. Are you up for it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Best way to get experience. Just hop in there, man. Yeah.
Was anybody convinced by that then?
I was totally convinced.
Yeah, was anybody convinced by the way they put that across then? And the messages going off and everything, and the phone hasn't stopped, and all the rest of that.
I'm not wearing pants, Paranormal People. I never do. Trousers are for people that don't overeat easily, and I'm fat.
That's a good point, though, Mags. That I'm assuming Steve has pants on, right? Yes.
Yeah. Gee.
we don't know exactly what is going on, so.
Yeah. Hey, Michael Paranormal Rich.
Hi, Michael. Hope you're doing okay. There's a question for you there in the chat, Lindsay.
No, I wear gym shorts all the time.
There you go.
I gotta stop smoking. He says he finishes a cigarette.
Yep, thanks for that, Jill. How many have we got in there, Lindsay? Can you see?
Let's see. We got. Open it up. 6 people, not including yourself.
I think that's enough to go off, don't you?
Yeah.
I think that's enough to start with. Okay, right. Well, I've sort of like, we're thinking of giving this the moniker fashion or fad regarding the paranormal and the almost, if you like, fickle way that it can be approached sometimes, how it was at one time to how it is now. Thanks there, Max. Okay, so the first one, if you're listening and you got your big boy trousers on, will be, check this one out. Okay. Will the paranormal remain this popular And if so, why? Do you think it's going to continue at the same kind of rate? I mean, obviously, we've seen a massive boom in the amount of people getting involved in the paranormal, wanting to set up groups, go out investigating, and mix that with the trend of the locations that are starting to charge people for admittance and that kind of thing, as well as TV shows. It's all over the media. It's and the way that it's being portrayed. Do you think that that's going to carry on at this kind of rate? Does it have legs, as it were? Over to you, Lindsay. What do you think?
Well, you got to look at a few things. The TV series Ghost Hunters was on the air for 10 seasons. They were extremely popular in their time. People loved it. And then Ghost Adventures came out. They've been on the air 19 seasons. That's almost 20 years of one paranormal show, which that is the longest running paranormal show on television that I know of. And where the don't get evidence, they still have entertainment value. So I think that it's going to keep getting popular. I don't know if Ghost Adventures has another 5 or 6 years. I mean, if they do, awesome. But they definitely bring entertainment value along as well as the paranormal. So I think it'll keep going. I think given a few more years, it'll be just as strong in the younger generation because of that. Everyone likes to be scared. Everyone likes a good ghost stories. Since Victorian era, people loved having Ouija parties, trying to summon ghosts, and they would do the spirit boards and everything. And it all boils down to that. It's entertainment. They like to be scared. They like to, in the dark of the night, pretend that there's a ghost in their apartment or home or wherever.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, Mags, I'll pass it to you in one sec, Steve. Yes, I think it will carry on, maybe not in the same vein. Yeah, there you go. Just look how popular it was in the Victorian era, then faded and picked back up. But we're always going to know what's beyond life. The harsh reality of that as well is that a lot of people don't live the life while they're doing it. They're not sure what's going on during life, I think. Okay, Steve, your thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to maintain this kind of equilibrium? It's going to take momentum, I should say. Do you think it's going to carry on like this? Do you think it's going to burn out? I mean, nobody can deny that over the last at least 10 years, and it is longer than 10 years, but at least over the last 10 years, it's got to have tripled the amount of exposure that it's had, the amount of money that's being made off it, and the amount of TV shows and so on and so forth. What are your thoughts on the paranormal getting bigger or starting to fade away?
I think it's going to start getting a bit bigger because there's quite a lot of people getting involved in it now. A lot of people getting involved on that side. There's a few people who are still skeptical, undecided which way to go on it, but I still think we're going to start getting a bit bigger than what it is. TV-wise, I don't know whether they're going to carry much of the shows on. We've just got to wait and see on that side. But,
yeah, and that's the reality of it, isn't it?
Yeah, the events and that, you still see a lot of events going on Facebook and stuff like that. So, and people still actually book to go for them events. So, yeah, I still think it will carry on a good few years yet. Yeah,
and that's the thing. That's the thing as well, isn't it? The fact that events are being held and stuff does give people the opportunity to be able to go out and go to places that are supposed to be the sites of activity. Because of that, allowing them to conduct investigations when they might not have otherwise done it. Whether they're being overcharged for the luxury of doing that is another thing, of course. But the fact that they are able to get out there, and that also propagates the amount of interest that's being shown in it, is obviously a big side of it. But does it warrant the prices? Do you think it's overpriced? Is money driving the paranormal more than the desire to want to find answers to life after death, to spirituality and so on and such forth? Do you think money's the driving force? What do you think, Lindsay?
On television, absolutely. It's like anything else in Hollywood, if it is ran for a camera, and even a lot of people on here, it is a financial driving force. They let their popularity go to their head. They let the idea that they know everything go to their head. They let fame change them, which then to me takes away any appeal of it. They end up losing out on that thing that they started them in it to begin with, that passion, that drive. They didn't temper it. It is definitely mostly about the fame and the money for people now. I mean, anyone that's on television, and a good lot of them on here are like that. Take me, for example. I don't have my own channel. I don't do live investigations and stuff. I don't care about being popular. I don't care about making money. But then you have Ghost Adventurers, like I said earlier, almost 20 years on television. They've made a large amount of money. I think it's going to keep going and going, getting bigger like that. But eventually, you're going to have someone that thinks they're like the Bill Gates of the paranormal.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the concern, isn't it? So in a big way, there's impetus because there's money pushing it or driving it, as it were. What do you think, Steve? Is money driving it more than desire for answers, would you say? I mean, Lindsay alluded to the fact that it's in the industry, as it were, it is certainly on TV and in media. But for your regular paranormal investigators on the street, do you think some people see it as a way to make money? Is it greed that's driving it? What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
It's either way, really. I mean, on television and that lot, the thing is, there is a lot of money involved in on it. I think they're just going. A lot of them are going for the money side of it, which you can say it's a bit greed on that side. On the average people what go out on the street and do it for nothing and stuff like that, like us at Tenside Paranormal, we've been out on investigations. And I think they could charge a little bit less. Some of these events, what they do and stuff like that, I think they could really charge a little bit less than what they're charging people. It might scope that you get quite a few more people getting involved with it than you see. I don't know. It's one of them with money, really. I don't know. But, yeah, there is some people that's a bit greedy with it.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there was one advertised on Facebook. I think it's coming up pretty soon. And they're charging people like 75 quid. Just to go on and invest for a fortnight in some castle or something like that. I
think there's various ways in which they try to justify it, I suppose, with obviously renting the venue and various overheads that might be incurred in doing that, I suppose. But I do think in many cases it is overpriced. But if that's what drives it, then there we go. Before I move on to the next topic, I'll just quickly fire into the side chat there, and here we go. I've got a couple here, so we'll do. The more important question is: does the thought of making a profit from the paranormal drive people to fake? Okay, thoughts on that?
Absolutely, I believe
absolutely,
yeah. So the answer to that is yes, Mags. It's a resounding yes from the panel, as it were. Okay, as someone who has researched the paranormal and UFOs for 40 years, I can honestly say I've made bugger all cash, but it doesn't bother me. I enjoy the research and the subjects, and I find that to be a very fair statement.
Yeah, that's a good statement, that, because you're getting more and more experience as you go out that way. Seeing different things and stuff like that. It's like myself. I enjoy going out doing it. Like yourself, Dave.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't charge anything. We just go out for the fun of it. You know.
As with ufology, when the wrong people get involved for the wrong reasons, it doesn't do anybody any good. Now, that right there is a statement of fact, isn't it? Can't hide from that. Yep. Wrong people get involved for the wrong reasons. It doesn't do any good. Unfortunately, it's getting the right people involved for the right reasons and what kind of campaigns you put out there to get it going. There's another one. There's a difference between getting the money in, and then there's a difference between needing the money for your research to proceed. There's a difference. There very much is a difference, in my opinion. I absolutely agree with that.
Most of the research, so you can get online these days, like if you research online, research before you go out to wherever you're going. You can always research and see what was around there at the time.
Absolutely agree with that 100%. Absolutely agree with that. Okay. Hello, Nicholas. Thank you and welcome into the chat there. I think that. Okay. Right. The second one would be, do you think, right, that certain activity amplifies during times of emergency? So let's say, during the war or during the Second World War, UFO sightings, like the Foo Fighters, and battlefield ghosts, ghosts that are seen at, say, that Culloden battlefield, the Gettysburg battlefield, and there's been an uprise apparently in the amount of sightings that have gone over the last few months. So you're looking at it as that amplified because of the pandemic. Is there a group kind of energy from a mass amount of people feeling negativity or exuding negativity due to circumstance that sort of propagates activity? What are your thoughts on that, Lindsay?
Absolutely. From my personal experience, and I'm sure you've had it in your own personal experience, and so does Steve. When you go into a place, if you are emotionally charged, you're going to get more of a reaction based on that emotion. If it's fear, bad stuff will happen. If you're excited and happy, it's 50-50. It feeds off the energy of the emotion. Right now, and even during like World War II, World War I, there would be a lot more sightings, a lot more things seen and happening because of all the energy. In a war, even the bravest soldier is afraid. Right now, you have people that are absolutely terrified that they're going to catch this virus and die. You have them worried and stressed because they have parents that have caught the virus. Some of them have died. Some of their friends have died. So it causes a group emotional energy, I guess you could call it. So absolutely, it truly does affect it all. It's kind of the mental state that we've talked about before.
It's a frame of mind, whatever frame of mind you go. If you've got negativity with you, then I think it happens more when there's a lot of negative around. That's the way that I look at it. If there's a lot of negativity in a person, then you're going to actually get some kind of activity. And like you say, at the moment with this pandemic and all that there's a lot of negativity in the world at the moment with it. A lot of people are feeling down and depressed and stuff like that. Bring anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massively emotionally charged melting pot at the minute, the world anyway, isn't it? The sheer amount of the media is driving a lot of the fear. I think most people know that, and I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't have a degree, pay attention to what's going on and be mindful, obviously, for the sake of people that are more vulnerable and so on and so forth. I mean, we do know that there's a pandemic and people need to be careful, but the mistrust, almost the fear in some places sometimes is palpable. You can definitely feel the fact that something's going on. Okay, I'll fire up some of the things in the side chat. do you guys think that the energy at places would get stronger on certain dated, like of events that happened there at that date in time? Okay, so say locations where something happened, would it be seasonal, or would it be a perennial, annual? Would it likely be more amplified at that location at the same time of year following? If you understand what I mean, I think that's what he's getting at, Nicholas.
I would have to say that's a good possibility. I can't give a definite yes or no, but if you ever pay attention to a lot of the older ghost stories and stuff, they seem more when it's rainy, misty seasons.
Yeah.
But that could be down to the fact that energy travels easier in that situation. In those situations, but personally, I can't say that like a time of day or anything makes a difference.
Yeah, I understand. What do you think, Steve? Do you think that events can happen or activity can be more intense at a location on the same day that a tragic event from the past might have happened? Say, as I said before, battlefields. There's a battlefield on the 10th of June. So does that mean that on every 10th of June for the rest of history, that activity there will be more intense? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think it would be, actually. I think it's the luck of the draw of when the activity actually happens at the place. It can happen different times of the year. As you know yourself, we've been to places and we've had nothing, and then we've been there before again and we've had a lot of activity. So my thoughts on that is with a date where something happened, I don't think there'd be a lot. I don't think it'd happen every year like that.
Which is sort of covered in the statement Mags has made there. People think spirits feed off our energy. If there has been more activity in Gettysburg since then, does that mean that they don't need our energy to feed from? Which is a very good point and well made, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Okay, let's have a look at this one here. Good point, Nicholas. I think energy imprints on places where there have been dramatic events or where many lives were lost, aka stone tape theory and such. Okay, let's have a look where number 3. Okay, so how can people feel safe if their home is active? So whether religious, spiritual practices or involving in a certain psychological mindset, if people are experiencing activity either at the home, at the workplace, or anywhere for that matter, how can they feel safe in that environment? What can they do to feel safe, Lindsay?
First and foremost, it depends on the entity. Is it a good entity? Is it a bad entity? But the one thing that you need to keep in mind that it doesn't matter if it's religion, it doesn't matter psychology, whatever. It boils down to the same thing. You have to keep in mind that you are the biggest, baddest motherfucker there, and nothing can hurt you. It's the same thing. Anything. If you go on an investigation, if you have fear, it will use the fear against you. So if your home is haunted or has an entity of some sort, you have to have the same mindset.
Yeah. Never go with fear on that one. Always go strong. That you're the person what owns that place. And tell it. Basically, tell it.
I think when you obviously you go into a location as an investigator, you're obviously there and using whatever techniques that you use, your team uses, which whatever aspect you go in from, you're going in with a blank canvas. In so much as obviously you don't know what is going on there. You do the preliminary investigation, you find out as much information that you possibly can from the witnesses or the people that are there. But because you haven't been subjected to that environment for any prolonged length of time, you don't live there. You don't have to stay there and pick up on all the energy and the bad feelings that are there all the time. You just go in pretty much cold, do your baseline tests, conduct other experiments that you feel relevant to try and get a feeling of the place, and then take it from there. But the people that report these events obviously live it. They're there. They feel it. And in many cases, they feel it that much and that strongly that they can't stay in that location. They don't want to be in that environment. They feel threatened. They feel emotionally and physically drained. In some cases, these people are getting attacked. And whatever is it, the root cause of that, you don't know about until you conduct the investigation. But they're being attacked. They're being, like I say, forced from the homes. And for them, it's very, very real. And I think if it's a build-up that's sort of something like gradual and over time, then I suppose in a way you can sort of almost get used to it. I can't say because there isn't activity where I live. There's nothing that goes on here. Okay, so in a first person, I mean, a personal point of view, I can't comment on that too strongly. But if it's sudden, if the activity is sudden, amplified, immediate activity, then of course, in an investigative sense, the question of being, why and what's caused it to happen. But if they're not in the mindset, if these people aren't in the mindset of understanding what's happening to them, because it has come as a cultural and economical shock, because these people can lose the jobs because of it. They can lose sleep and lose jobs. They can lose friends. Friends won't believe them. Family won't believe them. It can cause a lot of problems for these people, as we're already aware of. So I can assume it is very, very difficult. I don't know if I've put this one up already, but 1 second. They were people once. Show respect and treat them as you would treat a live person. If it's a negative spirit, then show your intent that it isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the key to good paranormal, because the people like Dave and Steve are objective. They don't investigate for gain or sensationalism. In other words, they're professional about it. Yeah, if anything, it's cost money. If anything, it's cost money. So that's the unfortunate side of that.
I can say I have lost money in doing the paranormal, and it doesn't really bother me. I don't do it to get famous or rich or anything. And as for scroll back up. The thing is, Max, I'm a bit of a prat. I treat every human being the same. I'm brutally honest and blunt. I don't take shit. And I say what I think. And I'm the same way with spirits. I have no time, whether a good entity, bad entity, what have you, to play games with it. I'm the same thing with people. So I do treat them exactly the way that I would treat a living person. I give them a chance to prove what they are, to show how they are, and then I go from there.
Yeah, I think that's as good as any type of place to go from.
Yeah,
like I say, a massive amplification of energy in a place. Suddenly is normally has its groundings in a totally different place than a lot of others, and massively amplified very, very quickly. Then it's a massive culture shock to these people, and to anybody in that location. So yeah, I suppose that's all fair comments. I'll fire up the other one. There we go. Okay, this will be okay. So yeah. This is just for my own. This is just for my own kicks for this one. So are we dealing with paraconsciousness or parafanaticism? So in other words, are people aware of their actions, or are a big majority of people just ghost hunting fans? Now, Mags sort of alluded to this with an answer a little bit earlier on. I'm saying about using respect going into a location and so on. But are a lot of people doing it because they're consciously aware that they might be going into an environment where spirit energy needs to be crossed over, or the activity in that house needs to be sorted out. I mean, I think there's a lot of that goes on, but do you also think that there's a lot of people that also do it because they're just into the paranormal? They like the paranormal. They've seen a lot of it on TV. So is it because they're conscious about what they're doing? They're aware of what they're doing before they go in, or do you think a lot of people just go into it because they want to do it?
No, I think actually it's because people go into it because they know what they're doing on that side of it. Some fans out there maybe go into it just to see if they can see anything on the night. I think some people just go for that. But most investigators what go out and do the job actually go out knowing exactly what they might get into or might not get into situations. You can get into some situations when you're out there. You just got to be ready for when it happens.
What do you think, Lindsay, regarding intent? I suppose I'm getting at really there.
I think a lot of people anymore, like anything else, very easily swayed.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of them get into it out of fanaticism because they see shows on television or they see people online. They kind of idolize the whole idea of it. And while it's good because that means we have more people coming into the field, which means we might be able to get more evidence and everything, it's also bad because I don't think a lot of these people are prepared for a lot of the darker and harsher realities of things that can happen in this field. Bad shit can really happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's more along the lines of fanaticism than actual anything else. They might enjoy it, but eventually the fun's going to go away, especially if they see something that can haunt their dreams for their life.
Yeah, and you've also got people that are going to be going into these locations and stuff because they've actually had experiences themselves. A big group of people that get involved in paranormal investigations have had experiences themselves regarding something involved in the paranormal, so that drives it also. Okay, what have we got at the side here? That's a couple of points of note. I agree, Nick, obviously, with Nick's earlier statement. Even listening to a spirit box online, I always say please and thank you. I think that's just good manners anyway, regardless of whether you believe they work or not. Here we go. Yeah, I think it's a case of monkey see, monkey do. They see a TV show and think they know everything. Now, I'm glad you've said that, actually, there, Max, because it's my turn. I think a lot of people do go into wanting to conduct paranormal investigations because they are fans of the paranormal. They watch a lot of shows on TV, and the way that media portrays an investigation, for the most part, is not how an investigation should be either A, conducted, or B, how it actually goes when you're there on the night. They're seeing a condensed, dramatized version of what truly goes on at a location. Now, for the most part, and I've said this in the past, I've said it to people several times, paranormal investigation, for the most part, is like warfare. It's 95% inactivity and boredom and 5% absolute pandemonium if you're lucky. And if you're not lucky, it's 100% walking around chasing your own backside with not a great deal going on. Now, with the TV world, in TV world, in television show and in films and that, it's within 1 hour, within 1.5 hours, all hell will be set loose. Everything's going to kick off in a short period of time, and before you know it, the devil's going to be pulling your heart out through your kneecaps. Now, we know this not to be true. Yeah, there's a lot of comments in the side chat that I'm going to come to here because there's some absolute fantastic ones. They're just scrolling up so fast. But, I've been on many investigations, and Steve's been on a lot of investigations with me over the years where absolutely nothing has happened whatsoever, not a single thing. At places where people will try to convince you are absolutely overrun with spirits running around wearing all sorts of clothing from all sorts of different periods in history. So we know it doesn't really work that way. So I think a big part of it is fan. There's a lot of fan-based paranormal investigation going on, and very little research leading it or coming out as a result of it. Okay, so what have we got here? Here we go. It's a repetitive cycle. I got into investigating in the late 70s, and when the Amityville horror came out in 79, all sorts of experts came out of the woodwork. I think that's a pretty fair comment, really.
Yeah.
I'm not that old, so I don't know.
Then again, when Ghostbusters came out in 1984, again, there were all sorts of TV programs, and everyone became an expert on ghosts and the paranormal. Don't knock Ghostbusters, because that's where Mags is going to get her trap from. Isn't that right, Mags?
I just want the Ecto, that car.
That's an excellent statement. You have to be someplace other than where you are. You'll never see the here and now.
Excellent comment.
Yeah, definitely not prepared. Is it going in there blind eyes to begin with? Yeah. All too often, unfortunately. And the thing is you're going into, if it's a residential investigation you're going into, you haven't done any kind of research on it. You're just going in with all the bells and whistles, And I'm guilty of having all sorts of equipment that, for the most part, flashes away nicely, but on a lot of investigations does nothing whatsoever and doesn't add to, but by the same token doesn't detract from the investigation. But just to go in with all guns blazing without having any kind of research on both the background and the the history of the location, the geology of the location. In a lot of cases, you can be dealing with the geology of the location, mineral deposits, and so on and so forth, where power lines are, and all that kind of. There's a lot to take on board, but people don't. Here we go.
Yeah.
So I have something I want to ask. What experience, the very first thing that you can remember, not an investigation, but actual experience, made you realize that you wanted to be a part of this community? I
think that's a good question. I'll just fire back at Shrimp there in the side chat first. Have I been to any active locations? I've been to many active locations. What has been the cause of the activity in them locations, I am not so sure about. But I've been to many places and over the years, and yes, many locations that are what people consider to be active, and that has come up with stuff that was, interesting to say the least. In answer to your question, Lindsay, my own experience when I was young, on a nearby golf course, seeing a full body apparition that I couldn't explain in a location where they disappeared from view within seconds, but that wasn't physically possible. And this is also in the snow, and should have left footprints, and no footprints were left at all whatsoever at that location. So that was what sort of drove me. I don't know if Steve wants to answer that. What happened to you, or did you have an experience that made you want to become a paranormal investigator?
Yeah, years ago. Actually, in an house what used to live, the first house what Mum and Dad bought, when I was only young at the time, and that's where I saw a full body apparition just standing at bottom of my bed. You know what I mean? And that's what brought me into it. Really an apparition. It was 1 minute, gone the next. Like a split second. See it, and it was gone. And it made me curious then to move on and try find out, this side, what actually is on the other side.
Mm.
And that's why I've been in it ever since.
Okay, Mike says, what annoys me is instead of learning the history of a place to keep a video interesting, they turn to faking to think we'll all buy that crap when they get no evidence.
Well,
Yeah, there's a lot of that goes on, unfortunately. Yeah.
well, that's the thing, and it's ruining the paranormal for a lot of people, and we're not getting any real great evidence anymore because there's so many fakes out there. And people don't go into it. Even what could be good evidence has to be thrown away immediately because people don't go into it with the right mindset. When you go into any investigation, if you think it's haunted and you're pushing that it's haunted, then it doesn't matter what you get, it's haunted. Same thing with it not being haunted. You have to go into it looking at it this way. If I can't prove it 100%, and even if I can't debunk it 100%, then it has to be tossed.
Yeah.
Because there's always chance. You know, did the wind blow a certain direction this time? Was it this? There's a lot of factors in any place when we go in that we can't take into account. You know, you can plan for stuff, but you can't take everything into account. You know, light anomalies can be caused by gas. Noise can be caused by running water. So if you don't know 100% whether you see a figure, if you see a figure in a picture, if you cannot debunk it, then it's real. But if it's I don't know, then it's tossed out. It's bent. You can't keep it as evidence because if you don't know, how the hell is anyone else going to know?
I think that's a fair point, isn't it? A big part of it's about being disciplined enough to be absolutely as critical of your own evidence as you possibly can, and just how many can. I mean, I know that it's difficult to remain impartial and distant from what you're having, because especially if you're having an experience yourself. But certainly, you've got to be mindful of the fact that you have to be your own biggest critique. Okay, so what's that? Those lads from the zombie. Yes. Okay, yeah, in North Queensland, Australia. Fantastic. Rorridge Paranormal, also from Australia. That's what we like to see. Okay, number 5. Okay, should investigators share information, and if not, why not? So that is from comparing evidence, sharing investigative locations, and asking advice from one another, seeking help from one another, and basically forming the community, which is a word that everybody throws out there a lot, isn't it, regarding the paranormal, that there's a community, when in some cases it seems that there's a paranormal immunity because people don't seem to want to communicate. There can be a lot of mismatches of idealism and approaches, and there isn't a set way, because people are individuals. People are individuals, aren't they? And people can become possessive and protective of the information that they've got. But should it be shared for the good of the paranormal community? Should it be shared? Evidence, locations, and should people ask one another for advice? What do you think, Lindsay?
Absolutely. If you cannot share information and exchange ideas, then you're not doing yourself or the paranormal any good. You have to look at it like this. Say we have a cure for every type of cancer in the world. Say America comes out with it first. It would be reprehensible and horrendous of us to not give that information to other countries, no matter what. And it's the same thing, whether our ideology, spiritual belief, or anything else like that is the same or not does not matter. You have to put all of that aside and look at it in a professional and moral standpoint of whether it's right or wrong. You're not harming them by sharing ideas. You're not harming them by giving You might be able to take an idea that you had and move it forward more than you could, so that you learn
Yeah.
something.
What do you think, Steve? Do you think information should be shared? People should seek advice from one another? I mean, we're in this age, especially where communication and the transfer of media is easier than it's ever been. We haven't been at this level of being able to communicate like this ever before. Do you think that people should share information? Should they stay in touch, share locations, that kind of thing? What are your thoughts?
I think it'd be a good thing if people did share the information. It'd be a lot. In fact, like Lindsay said, they might have a better insight than what you've actually thought. If you've been to the actual location and you shared it between you, they might have come up with something that you've been trying to think. You know what I mean? And on the other hand, you might have something in mind from the location, and they come up with the answer. So sharing it with each other, with the media, what there is out there now, would be a lot easier, I think. A lot easier. If the other paranormal sites do think that way, but some don't, do they? Some actually keep their information. But it would be a better thing to share, I think, on certain locations.
What do you think? Obviously, I'll put it around to each of you in a second. Of course, anybody who's in chat who wants to. I like that. I'll get to that in a second. Actually, Notch. Do you think that there is a danger where if certain locations are revealed, that place can be overrun by lots of people that want to then investigate that location, and by doing so, pretty much relegate it to a non-entity because of the sheer amount of people that can turn up at these locations. Now, I've conducted investigations at certain places that have started to become known over a period of time, and arrived there rather, when multiple different investigative groups have turned up. And there's that many people trampling around that nothing's going to happen, nothing at all. Apart from you going to record the sound of your own footsteps, you're going to get all sorts of various anomalies just because of the amount of people that are there, the amount of investigators that are there. And the same thing applies in many ways to residential investigations. You go to a home, kitted out to the max with all sorts of equipment, and there's that many of you this is in somebody's home. There's that many of you in this home that you're tainting any potential evidence that you might get, and you're in danger of getting nothing because of that, if you understand where I'm coming from. What are your thoughts on that, Lindsay?
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, it's great to get the locations out for other people to try and get evidence that you couldn't do it. But then you have things like over here in America, you have Waverly Hills Sanatorium. That place, because it has so many people coming in and out, they charge about $1,000 a night, if I remember correctly. So it's an up and down. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It is a good thing to share, and everyone else maybe get different evidence from the same location, or even the same evidence, which would make it doubly, like, make sure that you have the same thing. And if you do, then that would make it 100% more authentic. But then if it becomes really, really super popular, it's like you said, you have a bunch of people walking around. You have too much noise to catch evidence.
Yeah, so it can become a double-edged sword. I mean, do you think there's a danger with that, Steve? Too many people in one location contaminating the evidence? I'm going to go back to a comment Mags made a second there. Do you think too many people in location can ruin it, or too much activity there can make activity appear as if it's happening, but it really isn't?
Yeah, I think it can actually. I think certain locations, the groups or whatever paranormal groups here should keep certain locations to themselves, and because it can cause a lot. I think your evidence, what you're going for on the night, you're not going to get, because there's too many people going to be trampling all over the place, and it's like you say, you're just going to hear your own footsteps walking about. I think it would actually contaminate the site, because some people go out to dispatch them as well, don't they? Try and put them back into the light.
Mm.
So then the areas where you was investigating, when you go back to it, you find after you go quite a few times and you're not getting nothing at all.
And that sort of lends itself towards what I was saying about, well, when we were talking about events earlier, that it can give the impression of being in an investigative environment, but because you can have large groups of these people, 40 to 50 to 60 people or whatever, and you know, they're trampling all over the place. There's footsteps reverberating around the building. There's voices coming from all over the place, and people are getting hyped up and ramped up because of it, because they think there's all sorts of activity going on. So
Yeah.
you go back to this one here. I suppose that depends on the spirits can use our energy thing. If they can, then it should be a buffet for the spirits. I think that's very valid when you're at a location where you try to control the environment as best as you can, and the investigators that are in it as best as you can, for sure.
Yeah.
This one. That's always nice to see, Mags. And that's always nice to see as well, Beth. So the answer is yes, isn't it, really? The spread of information is good. For the most part, can be a double-edged sword, but mostly it is a good thing. Okay. Yeah. Let's have a look at this. I don't want to get too much into the psychology side of things, but I will do something more about the psychological side of things on another stream. So I'll go with this one. So does society accept the paranormal as real, or just media influence madness? So now I'm referring to people that might not be into the paranormal in so much as being investigators. They might not be people that watch TV shows about the paranormal. And I mean all kinds of paranormal or supernatural here, by the way. You name it, all of it, yeah? Do you think that society, for the most part, just think that it's driven by TV, media, it's mass hysteria, and it's a fad, and always has been, always will be? What part do you think the media play in portraying that to the general public, Lindsay?
I think the media portray that 100%. If it's not to the media and to society itself, it's an entertaining host. To the people that actually live through it and go through it and work in the field, it's a strange, anomalous reality. We look at what's happening and we try to quantify it, and we can't. But society and the media already quantified it as bullshit.
Yeah. A lot of armchair ones as well.
But, you know, then again, I shouldn't feel so bad for society, because this is the same society that was eating dish pods and stuff as a challenge. So,
yeah, that therein lie the rub, isn't it? That's the tough thing about it, is the state society is in. Really, does it matter how they view the paranormal community? But I think if the paranormal community is trying to make headway into society as being recognised as being a valid construct, in so much as, you know, try to find irrefutable proof, which I think is going to be a very similar situation as if you imagine a baby chasing a balloon on the floor, and every time it gets near it, kicks it away with its own feet and has to chase it further across the floor. And it almost seems, in many ways, that the you know, the pursuit of the truth in the paranormal it follows that kind of construct. Unfortunately, see what we've got in the chats. Not a great deal. that makes it easier. Thanks for what we got here. Hello, Selena. Thank you for dropping by.
Steve Yarwood says it's spooky bread and circuses for the uninitiated.
Spooky bread.
the thing is Steve has over the years conducted many investigations. I've been a part of conducting UFO investigations with Steve. So he does have an idea what he's talking about, and not really been one to chase any kind of appreciation from people outside for doing that, Steve. It has to be said. I think Beth saying here, I think social media has ruined a lot. Paranormal teams, their ego have gone through the roof. It is about money at the end of the day. I think it certainly can do that.
Oh, okay. I did not see that, Mags. Earlier, Mag says, I think religion does play a big part in that question. As a whole, I think most people want to know if there is an afterlife.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, I have my religion and faith that I won't get into, but I don't see how it's any. I don't see how you can't have both. You know, I mean, many faiths say that there's an afterlife. So, to some people, it's just trying to prove that their faith is valid, I guess.
That's very interesting, yeah.
And Beth, I agree. Social media has ruined the world.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It was just her earlier comment about the egos and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, here we go, Mags, so you don't shout at people. Yeah, I think religion does play a big part in that question, yeah. I think it's not unknown for people as they get older to turn to religion that might not have shown an interest in religion beforehand. And as people get nearer to the reality of their own demise, maybe seeking some kind of comfort and solace in religion, and if that helps them, I think that's absolutely wonderful and fantastic, beyond a shadow of a doubt. But that is a good point, a very salient point. That there's a big chunk of people who do get into it too because they do want to know what's going on. They are interested in evidence of life after death, or to at least feel comforted from the fact that there's a possibility of life after death. And whilst that might be true for the most part, when people are on investigations that might have a certain religious aspect, you don't necessarily see that portrayed in the techniques that they use when they're on an investigation. If you want to comment on that, Lindsay.
You really don't. You don't see the whole religious led investigations. And that's because I think even people in religion realize that it's unquantifiable. The same way that the paranormal is unquantifiable. You cannot measure the energy of God, for lack of a better word, or anything else like that. I think that the reason people go into it through a scientific point of view is that they can try and prove it's there. So they can try and get quantifiable scientific evidence of an energy, of an essence, of whatever. And then the only time they really fall back into the religion stance is if it's a very dark entity. But that's human nature itself. It doesn't even have to be paranormal. You can take the biggest atheist in the world, and when something really, really bad happens to them, they instantly fall into, oh, God, help me. So, you know, it doesn't matter the religion or anything. I think it's more of the human mindset. We want to quantify it with science, and then we lean on the religion when we don't understand it.
I mean, on the investigations, what you've been on yourself there, Steve, it has to be said that although going into certain locations, you don't necessarily see people employing their belief system as a tool, for want of a better word. Of course, I'm not trying to play down religion in any way whatsoever, but they won't use that as a basis for explaining away certain phenomena that happen within the investigation, if you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there. A lot of people don't use the religious side when they go into an investigation. It's they use certain ways when they go into them. It's catch-22, that one. Catch-22. Whatever you come across.
Okay.
Depends
I'm going to
what
highlight
kind
this
of
one.
investigation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Question: Would you be able to do an investigation without any equipment? Now, I think that's a very valid question, given the fact of the amount of flashing lights and bits of equipment that people take along. So, would you be able to do an investigation without any equipment? What do you think there, Lindsay?
Yes and no. You can go in and you can log it mentally, what you see, hear, feel. But then again, your senses are part of your equipment.
Yeah.
So that's why I say yes and no. Can you go in without flashlights and audio recorders and video cameras and the bits and bobs that are used nowadays? Yes. Are you completely without equipment? Would I recommend going in without a flashlight and stuff? At the very least, a flashlight, no, because it's safer that way.
Yeah. What do you think, Steve? Can you conduct an investigation without using any equipment?
I think you can do it. It's a yes and no, like Lindsay said there. But if you want the evidence, what you're going in for, your cameras and your equipment, what you're going with, is the only way to get the evidence what you're after. Yeah, you still need a flashlight when you go in anywhere for safety reasons, being dark.
Yeah, so it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. That it's an hard one to answer, very hard one. But yes and no, yes and no.
I think it depends upon which equipment or which pieces of equipment you intended to take. I think if you're intending to go into a location or a place where there's alleged activity and you want to experience that activity yourself for the sake of it yourself, then you don't really need any equipment. Then you're going to have an experience and it's going to become a personal thing, a personal event, which you record in your mind, in your brain, that you remember for the rest of your life, that you can tell people about. If there are people with you, they can corroborate what you've experienced by having the same experience. Although in many cases they don't have the same experience, people can go into a location, something can happen to them, see something or hear something. There can be 4 or 5 people with them who don't see the same thing. So
yeah,
corroborative evidence isn't always. I mean, it's the same thing with a car crash. You can have a car crash, and the police can interview 10 people who are witnesses of said car crash, and there'll be variations between each. Each witness will say something that's slightly different, yet they've all seen the same event. So if you don't have any equipment, then it becomes more of a personal thing. But by the same token, if you do take equipment, then how valid is the equipment that you're using? How much scientific absolute is there in each piece of equipment that they are capable of recording what is bona fide paranormal activity? And the answer to that is none, really. There isn't a single piece of equipment, not one, not a single piece of equipment that can be actually said hand on heart by any investigator that this is capable of picking up paranormal activity. That is absolutely 100% bang on at picking up paranormal activity because it can't. Now we can pick up anomalies, whether they're audio anomalies, which it can be put down by the mainstream into debunkers as being apophenia. They can just describe, poo it away as being apophenia. We can come up with video evidence and photographic evidence, where again, this same said people can describe that away as being, pareidolia. So even getting this evidence is also subject to the fact that it becomes personal. When you corroborate it with personal experiences, then it has some kind of store. But where do you draw the line at the belief that you have in A, your own experiences, and B, the equipment that you take to record these experiences? So what are your thoughts on that, Lindsay?
That's a bit of a hard one, really.
Yes.
Because it is exactly that. You can't quantify a personal experience. Short of when the apple fell out of the tree and hit Newton in the head, that was one of the only times in history where it was acceptable to quantify a personal experience. Anything else like that, it has to be able to be experienced and seen by multiple people at the same time with no difference for it to be quantifiable. And that's what makes this field so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You can all see the same thing, but everyone's going to see it differently. Picture evidence. I've shown you one of mine, and I can see it, and you can see things, but that doesn't mean that what we're seeing other people can see. I've showed it to other people, and they're like, "Oh, it just looks like a spot in the mirror." It can't be quantified. That's the crux of the whole thing. How do you take a memory and make it real for other people?
Yeah. It's like when you go on an investigation and one person can actually see something and the others what's with you, what's on the investigation on the night, don't actually see it. But if you've got the video evidence on it, see it on the video after. It can go either way, that one.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things I want to... Yep, thank you, Jane. You take care. Have a good night. Hello, DW. Thanks for dropping in. PJ. Yeah, hi, PJ. Thank you for dropping in for a few minutes. That's very nice of you to call in. Okay, let's get a couple here that I want to go to. Right, okay, so life after death, and it's on a totally different plane. Yep, and that's the thing, and proving that to people who don't believe it is always going to be difficult, regardless of personal experience and or whatever equipment we had, unfortunately. So that is, yeah. Okay, yeah. Shrimp Shack. Who likes using the Mel meter? I think I do like to use the Mel meter. I like the functionality of the milligauss and micro Tesla function and the changing of the different values. I like the fact that it's got a thermocouple thermometer on it. It's a good piece of equipment. However, I'll put it down to the same kind of device as any other Mel meter. It's good at finding EMF, and that is all, really. And when you understand, which a lot of people don't, that an EMF is just an electromagnetic field that can be errant or stray from any source that might not be immediately obvious when you're at a location. You've got stray radio signals that are flying all over the place on either VHF or UHF frequencies, to underground power lines, overhead power lines, telephone cabling. There's lots of reasons that EMF can be around, but to be able to detect EMF, which can be responsible for people experiencing certain types of phenomena and for certain kinds of physical sensations. The Mel meter is just as good as any other, and in my opinion, better than a lot of them. That way.
Dave, before we go on, I have something else to add on to earlier. Everyone in the paranormal field needs to look at what's happening when they do an investigation this way. And there's a reason you cannot quantify and explain things scientifically. Science itself cannot explain itself, even if you say they can. If you pay attention and you actually look, the theory of relativity, it's still called the theory of relativity. Quantum string theory, everything is theory because it's unprovable.
Yeah.
So even though we can use the general idea of it to give rules and basis, we cannot go into it with that knowledge either because it's all still theory. Up until, what was it, the 70s or so, it was still a weird idea of tracking down criminals with DNA. So it's kind of the same thing. It'll take a while before any of this that we do to be accepted as something that's valid, because science itself doesn't accept what it says is valid, even though it claims it's the absolute truth. Because if it accepted itself as valid, it wouldn't be the theory of relativity, it would just be relativity.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a theory, it would be an absolute.
That's right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, 1 second. I'll just highlight this one. You know, when people say my life flashed before my eyes, I wonder if it actually happens when you have near-death experiences or an accident, etc. When people say life flashed before their eyes.
From my personal experience, because I literally died for a couple of minutes, I didn't see my life flash before my eyes. I did see a bright light, but the thing is I was electrocuted. So at the same time, that could have been nerves and neurons and everything. Now, have I seen my life flash before my eyes? Absolutely. Every time I lay down and close my eyes and go to sleep at night. I think that's more along the lines of in the psychological aspect of things.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think, I mean, that's the thing. Mass trauma, or at least a massive overload in the amygdala and the cerebral cortex, can bring about a lot of thoughts in a very rapid manner that can appear. It's almost like a dream state, but not. It's a bit like an electrical storm in the brain. Okay, so I've used pareidolia in my sessions before. I get it. If you hold up 7 fingers and ask how many are up, you get a 7. Yeah, yes, that is pareidolia, or is it? So I think, and there's another question from with haunted experience. I'll come to that in a second. So is it pareidolia that you pick up 7 and it's related to the fact that it's holding up 7 fingers? When and where? And I've had this discussion with Mags actually. When or where do you draw the line at taking on board what you think is evidence to what you think isn't evidence? What do you think, Steve? Where do you draw the line at thinking, yes, that's good evidence, I'm going to accept that, or I could just be imagining that it said that?
You've got to draw the line somewhere on that. I mean, you're debunking, you can debunk for hours and go through it and go through it and go through it. And it can be something and nothing, what you thought was something. You've got to draw the line somewhere because it can go on for hours. Hours and hours and sometimes days. On that one. You know, to try and get what piece of evidence you picked up and go through it. It's like your eyes, isn't it? I mean, your eyes going through it. You're constantly going through it and through it. Well, if you go through a video, you can go through a video for hours, which you know yourself. You can go through for hours.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, it's even after many weeks. I just saw that comment there. Many weeks later, even going back through evidence that you've got, even months later. I mean, I've watched videos that I've recorded many years ago and scrutinized it and thought, now that I'm away from the situation and away from the, if you like, the emotions of the situation, which obviously we try our best to control as best as we can when we're on an investigation, looking at them with a different set of eyes, being able to validate it can be a hurdle rather than just taking it for its absolute as an evidence in its own right. Okay, what do we have here now? Right, here we go. What about other frequencies like Morse code or laser beam frequencies? And I assume that means in regards to interference, or are we talking using them as units of measurement as an investigative tool? Okay, good night, Beth, and thank you for dropping in. We appreciate that. It was nice to have you on board as always. Definitely appreciate you popping in and saying hello.
I can't quantify. I can't say anything one way or another on using light and stuff, but it brings to idea useful things that I would like to try experiment-wise. Like, has anyone ever tried using like echolocation, which would be kind of like, or even echo? It would kind of be like the Morse code. You'd get the taps and it would send out vibrations. I mean, that would be a very interesting experience. I don't know how you could use laser frequencies because it's still light. Now, I've seen people try and use them, but the only thing it does is it distracts from anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing about Morse as well, I think, with Morse, if you're dealing with Morse as a form of communication, then in a sense of it being tapped out and expecting responses back in Morse, I mean, Morse is still imprinted upon a radio wave. It's still imprinted upon a radio frequency. Morse is known as a continuous wave. Yeah, it's so it's always there. But it travels further because it needs less energy to be picked up at the other end by radio. But I think using different forms of communication in their own right, if they're imprinted upon a radio frequency, then you've got that inherent radio frequency that oscillates at that frequency, which is measured in megahertz, kilohertz, or whatever. And maybe slightly outside of that, depending upon the mode of modulation, whether it's AM or FM, but you're still dealing with radio waves, and radio waves are radio waves. They can cause interference. Amateur radio enthusiasts and CB radio enthusiasts are known for potentially causing interference on TVs, neighboring TVs, because of the power and the modulation of the voice. So radio waves can travel and can interfere with a lot of things. So if it's imprinted upon radio waves, then I think it can travel and cause problems with EMF meters and other measuring devices at locations. Okay, 1 second. Okay, I'll just quickly go to this one as well. Me and Simon James did a laser experiment and we got a spirit to break the beam. Okay. Lindsay, what are your thoughts on that? Do you want to comment?
Well, I mean, that goes along with any other type of evidence you have. I wasn't there, so I can't say it happened or not. I can't say whether it was a valid experiment. Unless I reenacted it and got this exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you always have to take into consideration any and all factors of atmosphere with any type of experimentation, whether it be laser or not. I mean, if you're outside, are there bugs that's going to fly through it? If you're inside, there's still a chance of bugs flying through it. Are there pets in the house? If so, could it be dander or a bit of fluff off of the animal?
It could even be a fly or a bee or something like that going through it. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, as well, is you're dealing with a laser, which is what a light amplified source emitted ray, which is exactly that. You're dealing with a light being where there's potential for it to be broken. I use for various things, and high degrees of moisture in the air can affect lasers. Lasers can be refracted, light can be refracted, and once I take it's being shot at a light reactive diode for a system of measuring whether the beam's intact or not. And if anything refracts that beam away from the source of measuring, because the radiation will be dispersed, the light will be refracted. Even if you don't see it being refracted, it will appear as if it's broken. And there can be lots of things that can break that. I think to quantify the fact that it was a spirit just because it got broken, is there really any evidence to say that it was our spirit that broke it? I mean, really, I suppose all you could say was that the beam got broken, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah.
And there we go. What could break continuous wave from Morse code? The transmitter breaking is round about it. Once the mode is imprinted upon the carrier wave, upon that radio frequency, then it's out there. Radio waves travel continuously. The first radio broadcasts are still traveling out into space now. They're traveling through the galaxy. They are still going, and they will continue to travel. We're in a radiated, ionized universe, and ionization causes propagation, which is what makes radio waves continue to travel. So there couldn't be anything strictly responsible in a spiritual sense that I'm aware of that could be in any way possible stopping Morse code or the reception of Morse code. I think Morse code is a form of communication, and so but it's still reliant upon radio propagation. What's this? That's a fair comment, that actually. Well, okay. Lindsay Shrimp Shack, swearing is illegal on the radio station. So what's the swearing on ghost boxes actual evidence? In other words, is when you pick up swear words via ghost boxes and spirit boxes, bearing in mind, I'm aware of your opinion on ghost boxes and spirit boxes, of course. Swearing, would you consider that to be evidence, or more likely to be worth considering as being evidence than other words that might come through on their spirit boxes?
I would be more willing to consider it as evidence. Over here, it's not illegal per se, but it's very highly frowned upon. Like if it's the title of a song or something, they can say the word bitch on the radio. So I would be more likely to take swearing as evidence than I would something saying hello or seven or purple or blue or anything else like that, because it's not something you do on the radio. But here's the thing. There are ham radios, CB radios, and people swear on them. And even though it is a different type of device, it can still input and output on the same frequency. I've seen people use ham radios that will pick up radio stations. Same thing with the CB radio. So it very well could be that it's picking up a residual of people swearing on those.
Yeah.
Right.
I understand that. I mean, just quickly going back to this one, energy interference from another can break a continuous wave from Morse code. Well, the wave doesn't get destroyed. The radio signal doesn't get destroyed. It's still out there. It can only be intercepted by a certain antenna or receiving apparatus, but it won't be destroyed. It will still be there. Whether you don't get cross modulation because it's a continuous wave rather than an amplified voice wave, but I see where you're going to go with it. The thing is this: when there's if you've got an antenna up in the air and you're tuned into a radio station, and say for instance it's 103 FM, that doesn't mean that all the other radio stations don't exist. Your antenna is still picking up all them radio stations. They're still coming into your antenna. However, it's the detector and tuning part of your radio receiver which dictates which of those signals you tune in and listen to. So 104 FM will still be there, 102 FM will still be there, all those frequencies will still be there. It's the detective stage or the detection stage of the radio and the tuning stage of the radio which dictates which radio broadcast or frequency that you choose to listen in on. So let's have a look here. We got it as evidence on video, the laser beam being broken. I don't think for 1 minute that the laser beam wasn't broken. I'm just saying that there's no proof it was a spirit or ghost that did it.
That's true. It could have been anything what brought that beam.
I mean, you can get a drop of moisture in the atmosphere that can diffuse and break a laser. And we're not saying that it wasn't, but at the same time, scientifically, we cannot say that it is.
That's the top and bottom of it, really, Lindsay, yeah?
I mean, you can even get a different frequency of light that will break a laser beam.
Absolutely. I mean, that's another good point. Would it be dependent on the type of laser, as different types of lasers operate on different frequencies? Well, they do, don't they? The different colors are at different frequencies. I mean, you use infrared, for instance, it can operate at 850 nm, 940 nm, and these can just be the illuminators for the night vision cameras that you use on investigations. So light does operate in lots of different frequencies. Lasers operate in lots of different frequencies. I think when you deal with absolutes and say the reason that this beam got broken was because a spirit did it is a broad claim to make, unless you have evidence that corroborates what broke the beam rather than just the beam being broken.
Yeah, that's true, that.
Because it's my thing is, here we go. Sorry about that. I'm sort of behind on the chat in the cipher. Sorry. One of the laser pens that are on constantly.
No, a laser pen isn't exactly a powerful beam of light. So, I mean, it literally could be broken by anything. A dust particle, the cat farted, whatever. Whatever was in the air, it could literally be anything that broke the laser beam. We're not saying that it wasn't what happened. We're saying on a scientific level, we can't say that it was. Because for the very fact that laser beams are really kind of finicky, Steve. Really all it is, we can't say that it didn't happen, but we can't say that it did because we know scientifically how easy laser beams are to disrupt.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the laser was still on. It seemed like it just walked through the laser, then the laser went back to its direction point. So anything at all that's capable of refracting the laser from source to destination can be explained for why it's traveled in front of that, and that can be a multitude of things. So the beam was broken, but nothing to suggest that it was a spirit or a ghost that broke it, other than the fact that it coincided with the intention was that it should have been broke by a spirit.
I'm about as hardcore believer in the paranormal as you can get. I've experienced it, I've lived it, but I myself, as an investigator in the paranormal, I will have to be walked up, and Ebenezer Scrooge himself would have to tell me that he's there with the ghost of Christmas past and showed himself to me for me to actually believe it. And it's not because I don't believe that spirits exist is because I want absolute, undeniable proof. Not conjecture, not something that is an if or what if, but 100% absolute proof.
Yeah.
And if I say that it was a ghost when I don't have 100 absolute proof, then to me, that is getting in the lines of idiocracy for the simple fact that I have to put myself out here to do these things. And I want my integrity in the paranormal field to be indisputable. I want everyone to look at me and say, well, you know, he goes through his evidence with a fine-tooth comb. And, you know, this is stuff I would say was haunted, but he's like, no, I can't prove it 100%. Get rid of it.
Hmm. So that's where your discipline, or the discipline side of it kicks in, isn't it, really? That's...
Sorry. Scientific, Steve, you scientifically, you can bend light. It's an energy field. Simon is highly intelligent. He knows a lot of things, and he can do a lot of things a lot of people wouldn't think is possible. Him and I have had a lot of really in-depth conversations, and we see a lot eye to eye. But scientifically, you can bend light. There's no equivocation about it. It is possible. I'm not gonna bicker and quarrel over it. You know, I'm not saying the experience didn't happen. I'm saying that you cannot look at it through a scientific point of view and say that it is what you think it is without being 100% factual. You have to know all the ins and outs of it. You can bend light scientifically. You can deaden but not kill sound waves. You know, there's a lot of things possible through science.
I think that the thing is also is the fact that the light was bent, refracted, reflected, or is irrelevant if there isn't proof of source of, or rather cause of that occurring. And just the fact that the laser was stopped, bent, refracted doesn't prove that it was done by a spirit in any way whatsoever. All it proves is that the laser was affected, and that is all that it proves, and that's the harsh reality of it. I always say when I see Elvis being interviewed by Oprah on the night TV, I think that's really good. It could be. I think if Elvis appears on the Oprah Winfrey Show, then a lot of conspiracy theorists are going to be very, very happy and saying "I told you so" to a lot of people. Hi, Amanda. Hope you're well.
Steve Yarwood says, scientifically, we can now teleport photons. What's next? Well, scientifically, we can teleport them, but once we teleport them, are they stable is the question. When we're able to keep them stabilized through the teleportation, eventually we will be able to teleport matter. If that is whatsoever all to happen, we will have to stabilize it. And I think maybe in the next 150, 200 years, if people actually work on it, then it'll be a thing. Have a good night, Steve.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair comment to make. I think that's a fair comment to make. I mean, I think in many cases people want their experiments and their equipment that they're using to be validated to the extent where the controlled environment side of it goes out of the window. And I understand that, but by the same token, all it does is it justifies its own experiment in so much as the result. If the result is a beam being refracted, then that's all that happened. If the result is, lights flickering on and off, that's what you've captured, is lights flickering on and off. The absolutes, the difficult part of it, the being able to say the reason that happened is because of spirit activity, the reason that happened is because a ghost done this, that, or the other, and that's where the end result really comes into play, isn't it? That's where we're at with it, because until it does that, really all we've got is the flickering of lights or the bending of lasers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely on that.
But the thing is like I said earlier, nothing even in science is an absolute. It's still the theory of relativity almost 100 years later instead of an absolute of relativity. Stephen Hawking is one of the smartest men to ever roll the face of this earth. As intelligent as he was and as much as he could give to the world, it was still theory. The string theory, chaos theory, it goes on and on and on until it's proven to be an absolute. Even science is a theory. The theory of gravity, as far as we know, gravity is exactly the way we describe it, but until you can see it on a microscopic subatomic level, that up does equal down every time. Until then, it is a coincidence.
Yeah, that's the thing you're dealing with. You are dealing with coincidence, and I'm not a massive subscriber to coincidence. I'd like to think that things do happen for a reason. I mean, off investigations that you've done, Steve, and what you might consider to be evidence that might be caught, what would you say was the biggest piece of evidence that you did catch, but yet you still can't say 100% that is paranormal? Is there one event that you can put your finger on that you would use as an example?
I'd use, yeah, there is actually, but actually a stone throwing event can actually still there in the mind. Actually, seen it on the night, and this, like, you picked evidence up on video on that one, but it's it could have been it's still on the mind that someone could have actually thrown that stone as well. In that respect, I've still got that at the certain place.
Yeah.
Because you can't actually say 100% that was the spirit what threw that stone, with being the area as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's my intentions were to start the stream off with a short video, which is a compilation of people within the team reacting to things that were going on at locations, and it is in that midway through that video. And I think I might run it for a couple of minutes. No problem at all, Steve. Nice to have you aboard, as always. So I'll play it for a few seconds and see how it sounds. If it's any good, I'll let it run and people get a bit of an idea what's going on. And if it's no good, then I will stop it.
Yeah.
Is there a volume with this, Dave?
Is it what?
Volume sound. I can't hear anything.
This thing, I was just in the kitchen a minute. I've just got washing going. Just sweaty finger. No, I haven't got any sound on. No sound at all.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Andy.
So I think that's a fair indication of like some of the madness that goes on when it comes to like just being out doing investigation and what you think might be going on. Lots of different locations in that video over periods of time and just different experiences from different people. But the kind of madness that goes on, and yet none of that, any of that in there would contribute to being what would be considered a full investigation, absolute evidence, any of it in any way whatsoever. And the incident that Steve was referring to was in that where a stone dropped right at our feet. And of course, that's a phenomenon that's well reported within the paranormal. stone throwing and that kind of event going on. Yeah, Steve himself a second ago turned around and said, even though that I was there, I wouldn't say that I can prove that it wasn't somebody who wasn't throwing a stone. Would you agree with that, Steve?
Yeah, I agree with that one. Absolutely agree with that. It's one of them. It's like anyone could have thrown that stone. It could have been paranormal. It could have been human.
I mean, on top of which, we the first thing we done was obviously jump to our feet, which is in the footage contained somewhere. But jump to our feet, and the first thing we did was look all around the place to see if anybody was there. But of course, even then, just because we didn't see anybody doesn't mean that there wasn't anybody there.
Well, I mean, that's how it is when you're outside. Oh, he dropped. When you're outside doing investigations and stuff, even if you don't see someone there, it doesn't mean that they're not there. You're outside, people can hide pretty well. I've had stones thrown at me as well, and I've never been able to count them as paranormal for that very fact. Have a good night, Mags.
Yeah, thanks, Mags.
It's unfortunate that we're not able to prove or disprove. So that's where it goes into my just toss it then, because of that very fact. It's not something we can say 100%. Now, the day I see a stone levitate off the ground and be thrown at me and I get it on tape, then I'll be able to say 100% that that's what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I've been in situations where I've experienced that happening. I've seen that happening, objects moving, and of some weight as well. There's been some weight behind these objects. I'm not talking about little things here. I'm not talking about a piece of paper that could be blown by a draft coming in from an open window. I'm talking about objects that might weigh a couple of pounds in some instances, or even more, that have moved right in front of my eyes. I've seen this happen. Here we go. He's back with us. There we go. We've seen these things move. We've seen this happen. Yeah, that being the case, and still all being said, can't say right. The reason that did happen is because it was a spirit. That got thrown or that got moved because it was a ghost. It was X, Y, or Z. Just simply that it moved, and that's that's all. It goes down to another experience that is unsubstantiated by both science and in many cases reason.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the big part. Okay, let's quickly put this back up. Is there any questions out there in Chatland that anybody might wish to ask?
While you're doing that, I'm gonna run to the bathroom.
Yeah, no problem at all, Lindsay. You do what you got to do, brother. I've seen and felt many things over the past. Absolutely agree with that, Steve. Yeah, many experiences myself. And I think obviously you know Lindsay anyway. He's had lots of experiences, and Steve, who's on screen with me now, he's conducted many investigations with me at historical locations as well as residential properties, and we've had plenty of experiences and seen a lot of stuff, haven't we, Steve?
Quite a lot of stuff. Yeah, quite a lot of experiences, good and bad experiences. Some more. Certain places out there. I'm not going to mention on chat where they was, but certain bad experiences out there, aren't there?
Yeah, but by the same token, we can't say hand on heart 100% that the reason that we had those experiences was down to anything paranormal or spiritual.
It's the same that we've had the experiences off camera as well when we've had the cameras turned off. We can't really explain that either, but we've both seen it at the same time.
That's another good point, because there has been instances in the past where we've conducted investigations where we've turned the cameras off, we've gone into downtime. You know, it's time to chill out or have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee in between doing something, and you know, things have happened whilst we're in that downtime. I mean, in most cases, we try to keep things running, all the equipment and everything. We try to keep things running, so we can hopefully catch anomalies as they happen. But we have had instances where things have happened when we're not prepared for it, and unfortunately, they tend to be really good ones too.
Yeah, really good ones. What you wish you would have actually got on camera, but you didn't actually, because at the time we turned everything off.
Yeah.
And same with voice recordings as well. I can recall one pretty good place what's got what has got activity.
Yeah.
What you just turned the voice recording off when it actually happened, and we was at the top of the street in the car when it actually happened.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even so, after all that, you have to say, right, put that aside. That isn't absolute proof. We have to put it aside as being, we don't know. That's it. We just don't know what it is. We can't say it's a spirit. We can't say it's anything spiritual or supernatural or paranormal. It just happened. It's finding that proof. And there's the problem, isn't it? Gathering the proof. Okay, where are we? I'll just flick this up.
Man, okay, that was a great segment to ask a question. I myself, anymore, I do not investigate. I had a lot of personal stuff happen, and I've been unable to investigate for several years now. But I have since then still yet have participated in some cleansings and exorcisms and stuff. Can I say that it's an investigation, kind of, sort of, maybe, but as a factual evidence, no, because for privacy concerns, I didn't record any of
it. Personally, for me, Amanda, everywhere and anywhere, really. In the past, many of the famous locations that are well known, obviously, Cragginus, Edinburgh Vaults, Shingle Hall, Hellfire Caves, the Ancient Ram Inn. Lots of, quite a lot over the years. Lots of local places that are also Derby Jail, yes, actually. Lots of local places that are also historically known for having activity, but primarily private residential investigations for the most part. And Steve, who's here with me in chat, is part of the team. So, but I'll let him speak for himself where he's been.
Yeah, Stockfield is one of the famous ones as well, where the children going around in circles singing.
Yeah, Stocksbridge bypass.
Yeah, Stocksbridge. Quite a lot we've been to. That asylum what we went to in Rich Eagle.
That's the other thing, is you're looking at asylums, hospitals, prisons, caves, woods, mills, people's houses, people's garages.
Yeah. Wormwood Woods as well. We had some experience up there, if you remember.
It's, the 30 East Drive years ago, Mandy, yes. Personally, I myself didn't get anything or remember anything of any note. I know that other people have had experiences there and claim that it's probably one of the most haunted locations they've been to. And that's up to them. I have nothing of any note that I can recount from that particular venue personally. But if people want to go and investigate it to further their experience, then I'll power to them for that one.
You would think that would kind of go with the I can't pronounce it. Cordelia.
Yeah, pareidolia.
Yeah, pareidolia. If a lot of people believe an area is haunted, does that make other people think it's haunted when they go to investigate? Or is that going to make people hear and see things that really aren't there? That's the one bad thing about your earlier question is, should we share locations?
Mm.
One of the bad things. It's self-hypnosis, maybe. Just overly believing hype.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, isn't it? You know, is the power of auto-suggestion. People expect something to go on there because they've been told that something goes on there. So, you know, you're always battling against that one. Amanda says, yep, I think that's obviously regarding 30 East Drive. I think that one is mediocre. A few people have said that as well, that I'm aware of. I think it's so-so, as it were. But add it to the list of many others. Go on, sorry, Lindsay.
It's all right. When I was a lad, my sister lived in this house. This guy killed everyone in his family. And I remember it would be broad daylight, and I'd be over at my sister's house playing out in the yard, and I could look up and see an old woman standing in the window upstairs staring out at us. Obviously, when you'd go in, she wasn't there. You could hear people stomping up and down the stairs. Certain doors in the house you couldn't keep closed with a chain. The most haunted places I've ever been are places that people don't talk about. If you ever really go to a town and there's a place that is taboo for them to talk about, then that's most likely you're going to be your most haunted location. You're going to get the most activity, the most evidence. You're going to see and hear the most.
Yeah, that would sort of like walk hand in hand with it, wouldn't it? That really.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the auto-suggestion side of it, isn't it? I mean, in the bits of that video that I shown earlier, where some people are reacting to things that are going on, although the video doesn't show it, it can spread. I'll use the words lightly because it's not a condemnation, it's an observation. The paranoia or the fear can spread throughout the group and the people that are there quickly enough. So when you hear that a location's haunted via word of mouth, and then you go to that place, before you even go in there, you're predisposed to having a belief system regarding the output before you get an output or an end result.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any, sorry Steve, we're just going to say, is there any more questions out there that anybody would like to put forth?
I've just seen one there that I don't know the thing yet, but it's one of the questions what come through there. That's known for throwing stones.
Yes, regarding Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or forest beings. Yeah, I'm massively known for interacting.
Rocks and stones.
Yeah, if you interacting with people that are making sort of requests when out on investigations, try to communicate with them and that.
Yeah.
As well as physical evidence on trees and in the foliage and nests and so on and so forth.
One of the investigations, I think, though, was in the churchyard. You know the one, don't you?
Yeah.
Where we had that big bang. Remember when we were just having a brew or something, and that big bang come up.
Yeah, and again, when we're looking at, the thing is about like audio phenomenon like that, is you know, when you hear like a massive bang in a location, it will startles the people that heard it. Obviously, you know, it makes people jump. And you know, even upon jumping up and looking around and not finding the source of doing it, it still just becomes an event. It doesn't stand alone as proof itself. But what it can do is like raise the interest in the location. If you then put that out there, let people know. Actually, I'll come to that in a minute, Manda. I'm glad you've brought that up. You know, you put it out there that we was at such a location, and there were bangs, there were whistles, there were whoops, we saw flashing lights. Now that will raise interest, obviously, in that location, but by the same time and by the same token, will that predispose people to being heightened, having over heightened senses, wishing to experience that phenomena themselves, you know, going to that location and almost expecting to hear bangs? So every little noise that they hear is then going to be considered proof of paranormal activity. What are your thoughts on that, Lindsay?
Well, absolutely. If you are in a predisposed mindset, whether it started after you got there or not, you're going to think everything's paranormal. You know, you can't let any of that sway you, because that's exactly what happens. Any noise, any knocking, a paper could flutter in the breeze, and you're going to jump and think, "Oh my God, it's a ghost." That's not how it works. In the movies, that's how it works, but from personal experience, that's not how it works. It's the mind playing tricks on you. When you see something that startles you, you instantly go into fight or flight mode. It's been genetically encoded into humankind from the dawn of days. You pick up on more things, you see more things, you hear more things, your senses are heightened. When something like that happens, your best bet is to just scrap the whole ordeal until call the night.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Steve? Like, you know, people when they're aware of certain phenomena that allegedly goes on at a location, that they are more likely to experience that by what they hear and see. They're just automatically going to attribute that to being supernatural or paranormal.
Yeah, they're going to attribute it to being supernatural or paranormal, but it could be anything without unless you've got full evidence, 100% evidence that it actually was paranormal. Then they're going to think that in their own minds. I think. I think you need the evidence. You need the evidence up front to prove it before you put it out there.
Okay. Excuse me. Man says, what's your views on the Randonautica craze? Anyone tried it? Okay, I'm not sure whether Steve's heard about it. I know Lindsay said he's not aware of it, or rather hasn't tried it. Now, this has been covered on a few streams and a few videos by other people. Excuse me. And I'm not to put anybody down for trying anything, really, for the most part, in investigations. That's up to them how they conduct them. That is up to them what they want to use while they're out doing these investigations. That's their choice. It's when they try to present it as evidence. It's when they try to validate what's going on as being paranormal or supernatural that I have doubts about. And I have doubts about apps, full stop. And I use them. I use apps. And different apps that I'm not going to name, but I will use apps that use randomly generated phonemes to act as spirit box type sessions. It's pretty much along the lines of using the spirit box, really, but using randomly generated phonemes through a loudspeaker to try and get some kind of interaction as ITC research. Now, I've had, and indeed Steve, some results doing this, or what you would consider results, because they sort of make sense, they're sort of cogent, but it's still not absolute proof. And hand on heart, you're not able to say all that you're getting is it just happens to be coincidence and coincidental. Now, Randonautica just geocaching, isn't it? It's just geocaching. There's a wow factor, and because everybody's doing it, and it's taking your location and randomly generating via longitude and latitude with global positioning satellites a location nearby to you so that you can go to that location and it can be nice and spooky. That's pretty much the only place that you are. You're at a place that's nice, random and spooky. I think in some instances, if it takes you to a place where there is activity, then again, that just happens to be a fortunate happenstance. But I think as an investigation tool has, something that's relevant in the paranormal. I have massive doubts about it personally. I mean, I don't know what you've heard, if anything, about it there, Lindsay.
I've seen one stream of it. I really don't know anything about it. My assumption would be it would be like geocaching. I don't even have a mobile, so I can't use them. I don't want to use a mobile. My point of view on apps and stuff. I think that 98% of them are hope and bullshit, smoke and mirrors.
Fact.
I can't really say that there's anything more than geocaching to it. I mean, is it getting you out and about and exploring random places? Absolutely. Which that's good for you in a way, unless it takes you somewhere illegal that will get you a trespassing fine or something.
A Ouija board.
Yeah, I think it's like the Ouija board of Google Maps is what Amanda's saying there. I can completely relate to that. Yeah, I totally know what you're saying there. I totally get it. I mean, for me, it doesn't have any store in the paranormal whatsoever. But if people want to use it, that's up to them. And and they're going to use it despite what people say. But I think the best way to, if you want to go out to a place that's allegedly got any kind of activity, is to do proper research, do some actual research. If there'll be local research in your library, in the research section, it will be there. In the reference section, there will be something. There will be legend. There will be folklore in your local community. Find out where these places are. Do your research and go to them. Is what I would say. Go to them. Don't download an app where you're getting ripped off for your money, where it's just a randomly generated numbers, longitude and latitude, and you go wandering off into the dark. And there's been some very, very salient points raised by other channels about the dangers of doing that, especially if it's a group of girls. It could be a group of men, really, can't it? It doesn't matter. If you're going off to a dangerous location, which is randomly generated by the very definition of the term of the app itself, then you're putting yourself in danger. And I wouldn't think that that's a good idea under any circumstance personally. Let's have a look. What's this? I also believe it generates coordinates of places in the area that have been reported for crime. All the more reason to avoid them, in my opinion, then, really, if that's the case.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
If it anything, no matter what it is, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Safety of the investigator is priority. The team and the investigators of the team, the safety number one, 100%. Do not go anywhere where the building is collapsing. Do not go anywhere where it can put you in any type of physical danger. And if you're a woman, even a guy out on your own, doing these things, and it takes you to a really, really bad area, then you're endangering yourself. And then that goes out of the idea of the paranormal and into the whole realm of stupidity.
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous out there. Even when you go into, I use this term rather flippantly, I suppose. But when you go into real locations, it can be dangerous. You do need to take care. So, in my opinion, Randonautica is nothing other than a money-making scheme app invented for, really, it's the same type of mindset as the videos you see coming out of the Far East, where every single spirit is like the ghost from The Ring. They're all dressed in white with long dark hair, staring down at the floor, looking at you through the fringe, you know. It's a cultish kind of thing. It's a craze. It's a fad, which I like because I like the fact you mentioned it, rather, because this stream was pretty much based around fashions and fads. Is there any more questions in the chat? Is there anybody in the chat who would like to jump on and join us for a short while? There you go. There's a challenge.
Big challenge.
There's always a challenge. Is there anybody in the chat who would like to jump up and join us for a few minutes?
You gotta be careful because you might have alert control or something.
Yeah. If I don't recognise who they are when they come into the StreamYard control room area, I'll boot them. I'm expecting not, though, to be honest with you. I'm expecting not. I'll throw one more out because there's still a few people there. Let's have a look. There's a few. I've sort of like got a bit of not a database, but a collection, a list of different things. I sort of want to like drag them out over a few live streams, but I'll do this one, right? Okay. Is investigating the paranormal investigating yourself also? Do you think that when you conduct a paranormal investigation, you learn about yourself whilst doing it? Is this something, do you think it's character building in any way? What are your thoughts on that, Lindsay?
Absolutely. You know, we're both over 30 now, Dave. So I mean, you can verify this. The most well-learned lessons have hurt in one form or another. And when you go into these places, you learn how to be patient. You learn how to be quiet and calm. You learn who you are deep down inside. You learn if you're easily frightened. You learn so much about yourself because things can happen on these investigations, whether it's paranormal or not. I mean, say you're doing a dark alley where someone was supposedly murdered. Well, you know, you're putting yourself in danger. If say someone walks into there at you, it's going to scare you. You're going to learn a lot about yourself in that moment. So yes, you do absolutely learn about yourself in these situations. You learn who you are deep down inside, without a doubt.
Excellent response. Steve, what do you think? Do you think that by being a paranormal investigator, you've learned more about yourself? And if so, would you say what you've learned has made you a better person or a more wary and careful person? Would you say investigating the paranormal has shown a side of yourself to you that you didn't know before you got involved?
Yeah, it's made me a better person on the more invests that I actually went on. It made me a lot better, and it also made me cautious as well in respect. So yeah, a better person, and also, you know, being on the cautious side as well, because you don't know what's actually out there until you actually do it. What's going to come up on the night on the invest? Anything can happen, you know. You get some really bad stuff what goes on as well. You know, makes you more worried and more cautious of yourself, and a better person as well. Make you more stronger as you go on as well, because you're learning more as you're going on in yourself.
I mean, I think if you you know, as a person, the very place that you live is supposedly haunted, or has activity there, then there's got to be a certain kind of resilience. I know we alluded to it before when we said if activity builds up over a period of time, and then if there's activity that's instant and, you know, seems to come from nowhere. But if you're in a location or you live in a house that does have activity and it's always had activity, then there's got to be a degree of resolve that you've got as a person to be able to handle it, you know, or at least a certain mindset. Now, in the past, you would. I know you don't make any claims, Steve, about where you've lived in the past, and what the houses that you've been in. But you've lived in a location where there has been activity. But in saying that, would you say that you learned anything from that, or you just felt discomfort being in that environment?
I learned a lot from it, actually. It made me a stronger person, Now I don't even bother. I don't even bother about it because I'm still at the same place, and I don't even bother much about it anymore. It's made me more stronger to actually get rid of the thing what was here. You know yourself. Because I think you've done an invest here, haven't you? This location.
I think that with you saying that means like another investigation's off the cards. Yeah, I'm okay with it. It doesn't feel that bad. We won't bother in future. It's all done with.
There's still activity going on, but my mindset towards it don't bother me much anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My mind's gone different.
Yeah.
To before on it. Now I've got more mindset on it. It don't. You see it, but I don't bother about it much anymore.
I think that's a very fair comment to make. And that was number 7 that we've gone through there. Okay, is there any questions in chat that anybody might like to ask any of us in any way? I did put a link out there in case somebody would like to jump in and chat with us for a few minutes. Go on, Lindsay. Sorry, what was you going to say?
What Michael's talking about also brings to mind kind of what we talked about the other night. After you've been in the paranormal a while, the people that investigate the really dark places and stuff and the really dark things, you'll notice that their sleeping patterns will change, as well their mannerisms in a way. We become more aggressive, a little bit edgier. We suffer from insomnia. It's almost like we develop a paranormal post-traumatic stress disorder. It's also along the line we become jaded and mirrored in the mindset that that we've seen it all, and that out of everything, the seen it all is the most dangerous aspect, because even outside of the paranormal, when you think you've seen it all, you become jaded. You end up getting the worst end of the stick. You end up getting screwed over so bad every time, one way or another.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It can have an effect, and you can be emotionally stressed, physically stressed. I mean, a couple of comments in there by Rose. It's bad tempered. I can't sleep, because obviously it is having an effect, especially over a long term thing. So some people can't settle us. This we got by Amanda. I always see things out of the corner of my eye, if you know what I mean. What do you think she's going to say? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's the thing, and a big slice of the actual visual elements of haunted reports or reports of paranormal activity is things being seen in peripheral vision, but more often than not, usually is audible. It's knocks and bangs and voices and things like that. What we've got to leave, they won't have the house blessed twice. Okay, understood. Okie dokie. Okay, got you there. Any more questions? And then I'll quickly bring Steve in for a couple of minutes. Got Steve waiting there. We'll throw a couple of the questions at him so he can answer them before we disappear.
Yeah.
There's another Steve on his way in, is what I mean. Steve in the chat, already in the chat. What's this? What's this here? 1 second. We've got, if there was I could get them to, if I was there, I could get them to leave. I think that's in relation to the problems Rose is having at her house. I would say. Any more questions? Okay, I'll bring Steve in, and then we'll go through a couple of the things we've already gone over, and then call it. We've been doing it 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'll just put this up from Manda. I need a big house, petrified to move in case I get a haunted house, so I refuse to move. Okay. Okay, well, we'll use that. We'll go around with that as something to bat about. Okay, so having activity at the place where you're already living, but being scared to move in case you go into a location where it might be even worse. So basically, going from the frying pan into the fire is pretty much what that's getting at. What are your thoughts on that? And I'll put that to you first, Lindsay.
It's understandable. That goes hand in hand with the anxiety you said you suffer from earlier. Anxiety can stop you from living a fruitful and enjoyable life. It really can. It's a horrible place to be mentally. The only thing you can do is just kind of suss out the places where you might think of move to. Look up the history of it, see what you feel before you make a decision. Don't let your anxiety control you. Don't let it affect the health and welfare of yourself and your children. Have a good night, Rose.
I've got a question there. We'll come to that in a second, Michael. I've got your question there. We'll come to that in a sec. Steve Jackson, round to you before I put it round to Steve from Haunted Experiences. Being concerned about moving from house with activity into another house in case that's even worse. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. Thoughts a bit house with activity. I think it's a look at the draw when you move actually to find out if there's going to be activity in it. You won't actually know that unless you lived in the place. Really, I don't know on that one really. Apart from if I did move from here to another house, it's the chance what you take, whether it's got activity or no activity.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. Steve, Haunted Experiences, welcome aboard. Concerned about moving from a house where there is activity into a house that might have even more or worse activity. What are your thoughts on that?
All right, first of all, thanks for yesterday, by the way, when I was in hospital. You texted me and asking how I was. I appreciate that, Dave.
No problem, sir.
Well, it depends on what activity they're getting, really, because, if it was me and I had activity in my house, which I do anyway, yeah, if it's positive activity, why move if it ain't doing no harm to you? But you've got to realise, if it's negative activity that's causing you problems, you may move, spend all that money, move into another house, and that negative energy can follow you anyway. So why move? You might as well just stay where you are and suffer with it. Because if it's negative, it can follow you around. It can attach itself to you. So,
yeah, I think that's a valid point. I suppose it really does boil down to the level of activity that you're having, Manda, and how distressing it is to you, the level of activity that you're having. If you are wanting to move, not because it's active, if the reason for the move is because it isn't active, it's just because you want to move for moving's sake, as it were, you want to get to a better location and you're concerned about moving into a location that might be worse, then you've been living in a place where there's been activity. You've been living in a place that's caused you to, I don't know, because I don't know the situation, but maybe stay awake, maybe feel like you're being talked to, or that there's a presence around. And because of that, there will be a certain level of endurance, if you like, a certain level that you're used to. And I suppose it's about being prepared before you go. And maybe whatever the activity is that's at the house, it might not be because there's ghosts, or spirit energy. There's a good chance it's because it's down to completely prosaic explanations, floorboards settling, electromagnetic fields due to faulty wiring. There can be lots of reasons that you go into a location where it feels like it's active. And that's not to say that where you are isn't active, just that be mindful of that when you move into a new place, that it might not be because it's something to do with the paranormal. I've got Amanda, that's another thing. I've put so much money into this house. I'm having trouble with space, having 3 kids and 2 with autism. They all need their own room. Okay, I understand that. So that's the driving force for moving, really, isn't it? Okay, I'll go back over one of the questions from before, and I don't know if you heard this, Steve, on what time you came in, and this is at Steve Haunted Experiences, but one of the questions that we asked before, we'll put that to you so you can get a shot answering it, was will the paranormal remain this popular, and if so, why? Do you think it's going to stay as it is, everybody wanting to do investigations, lots of groups, lots of TV shows, that kind of thing, and if so, why do you think it's going to remain popular? Steve.
Me.
No, not you, mate. This is at Steve Haunted Experiences.
All right.
Who's got his sound? All right, well, okay.
Sorry, repeat that, yeah, because I was typing the message back to them.
I said the question, or one of the things we went over earlier, one of the topics was, will the paranormal remain this popular, and if so, why? As in paranormal groups springing up, YouTube channels starting up, TV shows, that kind of thing. Do you think it's going to maintain this high level of popularity, or do you think it'll gradually die out?
Well, if you look at it, it's been like it for several years where people lose interest in the paranormal, then they start gaining interest again. It's like a yo-yo. It's like something that goes up and down. It's like, you know, I don't think it'd ever lose, you know, popularity. It probably died down for a little bit, yeah, but I'm pretty sure with new haunted locations that might be documented, it'd probably spice up the paranormal unity again.
Yeah, so as more and more places become known to people, they're more likely to draw in people that want to investigate those locations, yeah?
Yeah. I don't think it'll ever go dead, you know, because, like, you know, there's so many groups out there trying to learn the paranormal and trying to, you know, get the truth, the evidence. You know, one group goes down, 5 come up, 5 go down, 2 come up. So it's that kind of thing, you know. It won't lose its, you know, popularity. It'll still be around after we gone.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Let's have a look at what Amanda's put here. The atmosphere is calm. I like it only. Okay, yeah, you like it when it's calm, yeah. My neighbour, on the other hand, is a nasty bitter old man that constantly moans and shouts at my kids and dogs. So really, there's more duress there to want to have to move more than a desire to move, perhaps. I do understand that one. And here's one in chat that we can all answer. I think equipment will improve and become a bigger thing than now. More people will be open to it. Now you've got opinions regarding equipment, haven't you, Lindsay? I mean, do you think that that's going to drive it? More people want to do it because of paranormal equipment and the availability of it?
Sadly, yes. And the reason I say sadly, yes, is this is the general mentality of the world. If you pay attention, everyone wants the shiny new toy. Everyone wants the souped up car and the fancy house and the big fancy TV, the new computers and all this and that. Do I think that it will be a driving force? Absolutely. And the good part of that is, you know, there's a high chance that something that will validate entirely what we're trying to validate will become developed. But the bad thing is people are going to waste all this money on horse shit to find that one piece of equipment.
Hmm.
I mean, the day that they can come out with a dimensional analyzer or whatever they want to call it is the day that we will be able to, I think, figure out more about the paranormal. But we're a long way off from that. And until then, will the rest of it build up? Absolutely. Just,
Yeah.
it's a good and bad.
I mean, it's Steve. This is to Steve Jackson. I mean, you've done a lot of photography though over the years. You know, you've used various bits of equipment, and you'll have seen a trend in that people will buy the newest camera that comes out with the best lenses and the best flash and all this kind of thing. So you'll have seen firsthand that the equipment can drive the hobby more than the hobby drive the equipment. So do you think with more and more equipment coming out that people are more likely to want to get into the paranormal because they feel that equipment can prove what they're doing? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you think it will drive it?
Yeah, I do think it'll drive it a lot more. I think it'll drive it quite a lot. The new gadgets what come out, it's like new cameras. You get a new camera, they only go for megapixels, which, you know, the newer the camera, the better it is. They think it's better. Sometimes the old equipment is better. But I still think it'll drive the industry a lot more, bring a lot more people into it. They'll want all the newest gadgets what's coming out, and they'll go out and buy them as well.
Okay, that's a fair comment.
Yeah, it's same in the camera industry as well. Going out buying cameras, everyone, as soon as a new camera come out, they went out and bought it straight away.
Yeah. So Steve, there you go. The new equipment coming out, will people be more likely to want to use it? And will that drive the paranormal as new equipment and more updated equipment comes out? What are your thoughts on that?
Depends really. Many new groups come out when they ain't got money for equipment, so they have to go out and buy the cheapest piece of equipment, more like second-hand gear. You know, use the old gear. You know, you're not going to get a group who's going to come out and say like, well, that new camera, night vision, it's like $5,000. I'll have 2 of those. Not unless I've got the money. The REM pods, you know, new REM pods are coming out. I think Michael actually had one, 75 quid on the eBay. But who's got 75 quid burn some of the times, you know? It depends on how much, you know, kind of financial gain they can spend on it, I suppose. If they've got the money to buy the equipment, then yeah. I'm pretty sure, you know, some of the new stuff will be kind of like really good for the new groups.
Mm-hmm.
I think with new groups coming out though, they should actually research equipment, watch some of the old videos, look at some of the old equipment, because some of the old equipment can be better than new equipment.
Yeah, absolutely understand what you're saying there. I mean, in the back in the day, I say that, but back in the day, the tape recorders recording on a ferrous oxide medium were obviously all that you had. I mean, in the days of Maurice Gross and with the Enfield hauntings and stuff like that, and you were dealing with all you had was a reel-to-reel tape deck with microphones that you could stick around and hopefully get the best bits and bobs that you could, you know. Yeah. So you were limited to the time, and that's what they would use at the time. Yeah, there you go, exactly like that. The old-fashioned dictaphones, but the equipment was limited. But of course, by the same token, it sort of drove it. Is there any more questions out there in chat? Is there anybody like to ask any questions in the chat for us, please?
I've never used these tape recorders yet. Bought them, never used them. Maybe I should one day.
Any questions before we disappear? Oh, here we go. I also think the problem being in the paranormal industry at the minute is those trying to debunk every channel doing good for themselves. Obviously, you get the odd channel that should, state that it's entertainment. Yes, well, that is a good point, Amanda. I think I will openly say that the vast majority of videos that I've put up, in my opinion, the videos that I've made myself are just there for people to be entertained with, because I cannot say hand on heart that any one of them in any way whatsoever proves any kind of paranormal activity at all. And I openly say that for everybody to hear. Nothing that I have presented can prove the existence of ghosts and or spirit energy. Don't know what your thoughts are on that, Lindsay.
Exactly that. You've said it very succinctly. There's nothing out there, despite anything I've ever captured, seen, felt, heard, anything that scientifically proves and quantifies that ghosts exist. And, that's what the paranormal is about. We're trying to catch that one piece of evidence that can. But at the same time, we're pushing a boulder up a hill that just keeps getting bigger. Because no matter what we catch, it's still not verifiable.
That's true, that. That's true.
That's true. And you, Steve Jackson, you've the evidence that I'm referring to, and I use the term loosely, but the things that have been captured, you yourself have been there and been responsible for getting images yourself, for getting video, for getting audio, and yet you also don't make any claims that what you have captured or caught is absolute proof of anything. Would you say that's correct?
That's correct, that. Absolutely correct. You know what I mean? I have caught evidence, and caught evidence, but I still won't put a claim to it that it's a fact.
Thing is, it's so much stuff. It can be so easily debunked, and it doesn't stand alone. And if it doesn't stand under scrutiny, then you have to discard it anyway. What about you, Steve? Do you think people should state that it's just entertainment if it is just entertainment and that's all they're doing it for?
Not really. We're out there trying to get the truth, aren't we? Why call it entertainment? We're trying to work our butts off when we're trying to get evidence. We can't, prove everything we capture is, paranormal, spiritual wise, but there's got to be something out there. Because why are we getting all these EVPs? Why are we getting stuff on the ghost box? Why are we getting images on camera, photography or even video? It's got, there's something out there, but we can't explain what it is. We can't prove it's spiritual, but there's something out there which we need to find out what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's saying, Amanda, is what I meant in the sense is majority of these debunking of skeptics anyway are at a paranormal channel, like provided zero evidence themselves. Well, that's the thing, and pretty much where Steve's going with it, I think, is the fact that there is people out there that are genuine, that aren't trying to find information regarding the paranormal or the supernatural. And the thing is a lot of skeptics don't think that paranormal investigators have the ability to debunk. They just automatically assume that every single paranormal investigator has a narrative where they believe absolutely in what they experience as being completely paranormal and or supernatural, which isn't the case. Everybody should be able to debunk. You should be able to debunk your own evidence, and I say evidence loosely because getting it is one thing, proving it's what you expect it to be is another, and that's where the problem lies, doesn't it? What have we got from Diabolical Witness? I'm back. You don't get proof of spirit, you get observed evidence you cannot explain, and that's pretty much the top and bottom of it, really, isn't it? You don't get, even your proof isn't proof. It's always open to conjecture and skepticism. Is there any more questions out there in the chat?
I've always said that the only way I will 100% say that something is exactly what I think it is if I watch it form a physical body, the likes of mine, and it walks up and tells me, hey, this is where I'm from, this is what happens when you die, and then watch it turn back into mist and disappear. And that's coming from someone who's been in the paranormal for a very long time. I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot. I know that these things exist, but I can't give valid proof until that happens. Everything else until then is conjecture. My brain isn't willing to work.
Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from with that. Steve Jackson before, and then I'll pass it on to Steve. Haunted experiences. There you go. Proof. Is absence of proof proof of absence? Just because we can't get proof, does that prove nothing exists?
No, it doesn't really. It don't really prove that. There's something there, but what we're trying to do is trying to find out what is there. We look into it.
Okay, it was a little quiet on that one, but I got the gist of what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve, haunted experiences, like I said, is proof of absence. Does that mean there's absence of proof, rather proof of absence? Just because we can't prove it, does it mean it isn't there?
No.
Well, how can we prove it? Like, how can we even debunk it? You know, you've seen what happened in my place with that full-blown apparition in a living room. Yeah? How can I debunk that? It proved that something was there. You know, no one can disprove it wasn't there because it's captured on camera. So if Lindsay was sitting there one day and, like he said, like someone walked up to him, like a physical spirit, you know, a manifestation, and started talking to him, yeah? And then he just said something to Lindsay and then turned around and walked away and disappeared into a mist or, you know, whatever, yeah? How can Lindsay prove that he spoke to a living, well, not living, but how can he prove that he spoke to a spirit? It's just more hearsay information. And there's too much people saying, like, you know, well, I saw a ghost yesterday. Well, where's the proof? Because they say that they caught it on video. Every time you ask them where the video is, they've got no proof to show it. You know, even with EVPs can and can't be proved. You know, you might get an EVP session where you're asking a certain question, yeah, and you're getting a direct response with an answer to that question. We can't prove that that's a spirit actually giving that direct response to that question, but it's something intelligent that's coming through to give us the response to that question. So how can we prove that even? You know, whether being through a ghost box or an EVP, you know, we try to prove stuff, but it's hard to prove it. You know, if you've got the video, people are still going to be skeptical about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, that's the top and bottom of it, isn't it? Even when we get proof, the harsh reality of it is we've got proof that something happened, but not what caused it to happen, and that's where you're always going to be at, isn't it? I mean, they say for the believer, no proof is necessary, and for the unbeliever, no proof is possible, and that's always where we're going to be at. Any one event doesn't substantiate the existence of the paranormal that anybody has got so far, and every single piece of evidence or evidence that's put forward can be debunked in some way by somebody who is persistent and focused enough to want to do so, and that's really where we are at the end of it. So it does fall into a belief system that we are trying to find evidence because we believe that there is life after death, because we believe that there is spirit energy, we believe that there are ghosts, we believe that there are things that happen that we can't explain, and that is the crux of it, isn't it? We can't explain it, and because of that very nature we cannot prove it. Lindsay, closing thoughts, and then I'll pass it on to the others.
No, you know, all because I could say something would be 100% real, it still wouldn't be proof for everyone else, so it is the same thing. You know, would it make me believe even more? Absolutely. I'm a believer, but I don't see everything as proof. So I guess I'm a skeptical believer. I've seen things that I can't explain. I've seen things that would churn your stomach and make your blood feel like ice in your veins. I've experienced things, and I can't explain any of it for the simple fact that it's non-quantifiable. It's non-explainable in any scientific terms as of yet. You know, there's a theory, a very old theory that started around, well, it's been around for ages. I don't even know how old it is. That the more spiritual and or magical energy that there is in an area, the more modern day electronics will mess up. You can't take pure magical energy or spiritual energy and run it through a highly advanced machine, because it will cause it to mess up and be on the fritz. And I'm more ascribed to that ideology of things like that. So I mean, you can take the older equipment and get better evidence, but at the same time, that evidence isn't verifiable, because the very thing that could verify it won't work with it. Science has proven that there are many multitudes of different types of radiation and energy. So, I mean, until we are able to capture and analyze these other energies, I don't think that we're going to be able to get 100% evidence proof that this is what it is.
Okay, Steve Jackson, does the burden of proof lie on the investigator rather than the skeptic? Do you think it's up to the investigator to prove that spirituality is a genuine science, if you like, that the paranormal activity does occur? Do you think, Steve Jackson, this is that lies on the shoulders of paranormal investigators to provide that proof rather than that of the skeptics to debunk it?
Yeah, I do think it's actually down to the investigator to actually prove it. Your own proof. Plus, debunking it as well, it can be really hard. I don't know which. There's nothing out there yet what's actually debunked proper. Until someone comes in what actually can say that that's a real thing, there's going to still be a lot of skeptics out there.
Okay, Steve, haunted experiences, your thoughts?
Right, well, to me, proof is a good thing to do. If you've got proof then to show, then we are proving it. But there are ways that we can also, we are paranormal investigators, right? We are supposed to try and prove things and also debunk things at the same time. If you see a shadow walk across the doorway, you can't prove that's a spirit that walked past the doorway. That could be something else that's past the doorway, and you've got to try to debunk that, yeah? Because you put that video clip on, like, oh, Shadow Man walked across the door, and you don't try to debunking it, you're going to get the skeptics coming through and say, well, did he try to debunk that? They don't look like a shadow person. It looks like an animal or a flick of a light or something, yeah? So we got to try to actually prove what we can capture, if possible. And if we do capture it, we've got to try to debunk it as well. Because, that's what we're here for. And if we still say it's proof, then let the skeptics come in and let them have a little say so. Because, 10 people could say, yeah, we saw that. And 10 people could say, I didn't see it. So who's going to be right and wrong? Is it paranormal investigator who's going to be right and 9 other paranormal investigators, or is it going to be 10 skeptics? No, we need skeptics in the field to help us debunk some of the stuff. It's like one time when me and Simon and Aaron was doing an investigation, I was taking pictures of just a mirror, and I believe I caught an image of a witch. Simon came in there and he went, wow, where'd you get that from? And, he was kind of skeptical, but he sat there in that room for over half an hour, taking hundreds of shots, trying to actually see if he could debunk it. But all those shots he took, he could debunk it. So was it something that I caught at that time, which was only for me to see? Or was it that, I'm only seeing it and Simon wasn't seeing it, and that's why he wanted to try to debunk it and stuff? Because, Simon is, he was a paranormal investigator, but he stopped now. But to me, yeah, I think we need skeptics in the field to try to debunk some of the stuff that we think is real. because our mind plays tricks anyway. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that's a good, well balanced response. Actually, there's just this come up. We'll do this one before we call it for the night. I feel like the more I try to communicate with spirits, the more activity I experience. It's the reason I put out a video about once a month anymore. Just got to be a bit much. So there's sort of like a 2-in-1 thing there, really. And I'm pretty sure Lindsay will have his points on this. I know you're getting tired, guys. Would be okay. So the more you try to communicate, the more activity that you seem to experience. That because that is an upsurge in activity in direct response to the communication. Would you say, Lindsay?
Yeah.
Well, it's like I'll use an analogy. Say you have a new car, and the more you use it, the more broken in it gets, and the easier it'll run. Now, that doesn't mean you don't keep maintenance up on, obviously, but the better mileage you'll get gas-wise, the better power you'll get once the pistons have broken loose and start working properly. It's the same thing. If you communicate more, you're basically opening a doorway, and eventually that door is just easier and easier to open, and you don't even have to open it. So absolutely, I do believe that you do get more activity that way, but at the same time, it eventually it's going to break down. Same thing with the car. If you run it and don't maintain it, then you're going to blow up your engine. And that's what happens to a lot of people. They get burnt out emotionally, physically. They don't sleep. I mean, they get sick and ill. So it is a good idea, the way DW does it, is to just only sporadically do it, because it will break down.
Okay, Steve Jackson. I feel the more I try to communicate with the spirits, the more activity I experience. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think trying to continuously communicate with them can drive the energy up?
Yeah, I do believe that, what he's doing there, but I can also believe that you can do too much of it as well. It can actually be mind-boggled at the same time. I do believe in that.
Being from a place or living in a house where there's activity, you would say that you can sometimes much can be much too much.
Yeah, it can be. It can get on top of you. Really get on top of you. Too much. There used to be a lot of activity in here, but now there's not much now, because more stronger. I think it can also make you stronger as well. The more stronger you are, but there'll be a point where it actually can break down as well.
Okay, and then I'll throw it around to Steve, and then we'll do this one last question to Michael, and then we'll get out of here. So, Steve, feels like the more he tries to communicate with spirits, the more activity that he experiences. What are your thoughts on that?
Depends on the energy. Depends on the person himself. Like, if he's on his own, then I think more people, more energy. So more energy, more communication. But if you break that circle, if two people walk out or leave the home, that energy is been cutting off. So you are going to somehow see it that the energy isn't as much they used to have. So you're not going to get as much activity because the full energy isn't there. And if you come across a situation like become ill, you have a stressful time, throughout a part of your life, the energy's not there for them to actually communicate with you, because you've got to, take that energy and try to recover yourself. You can't be giving it to the spirits, and the spirits know that. So what they will do is say, well, look, okay, he needs time down, leave him alone, and maybe when he's better or when he's ready to come back, then hopefully the energy will come back and we can communicate with each other again. So, like, it's all dependent on the energy.
Okay. Yep. I think that's also a fair question, fair statement rather. And okay, this one for the last one, and then we'll get out of here, is from Michael, Paranormal Rich. And how long have you all been doing the paranormal, and what made you get into it? So, Lindsay, you fire us off on this one, please, sir.
I've been in the paranormal my entire life, really. For lack of a better word, my mom was a witch, but at the same time, being Native American, she would have been called a medicine woman. So I grew up with the idea of spirits and the paranormal and everything involved in it being a very real thing that I would see and experience. I started getting heavily into it when I was much older. I was probably about 14 or 15, and I started taking Latin and Greek in school so that I could study deeper into the occult. And then I started practicing it when I was about 17. And throughout the years, I practiced heavily to different aspects and ideology of the occult. I practiced paganism, hedonism, you name it, I practiced it. And eventually it got to the point that I was seeing the darker side of things in all of this. And I had to walk away from it because it literally was ruining my life.
Okay. Steve Jackson from TPR. How long have you been doing the paranormal, and what made you get into it? Can you give us that on for this final question? What's your answer to that?
Since I was a kid, really, from the first time that I actually saw what I saw when I was a kid, and then it just made me more curious to find out more about it. I've seen good, I've seen bad, especially in the South as well. I've seen some bad stuff. But it made me more determined to try and find out what's out there, really. To try and find out if there is life after death. And still to this day, I'm still doing it. Myself, TPR.
Okay, no problem. And Steve, haunted experiences, you doing the paranormal, and what made you get into it?
Well, I kind of had like a little bit of belief in the paranormal while growing up. I wasn't born in a haunted house or anything like that. What got me into it is when my dad died, 2011, 2012, beginning of 2012. I've got that crazy EVP, like my dad saying, "Love you, Steve." I saw shadows. I saw orb activity. I had sleep paralysis. I had doors opening and shutting on their own. Footsteps, whispers, and most of this would, even when the kids or the wife was home, it's not only when I was there, most of it. So I had to try to find out what the hell was going on. So I kind of like wanted to research it more. So I started watching a lot of like ghost hunting shows, YouTube videos as well. And what I saw put my belief in thinking, well, yeah, that happened to me. So there's got to be something out there. I want to find out more. So that's why I started, because I wanted to find out more about the paranormal, try to get the truth about the paranormal, try to capture some of the actual, evidence myself, and to prove that the evidence was real. And, I've been doing it like since 2012, 8 years now. And hopefully I'll do it for many more years. So, my dad got me into it really after he died.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a fantastic answer. For me, Michael, I've been doing it since I was old enough to allow to go out and investigate, and which was around about when I was 16 years old, so about 32 years. And I got into it because I actually had experiences myself when I was younger, seeing what would be called full body apparitions, and hearing things, noticing objects moving of their own accord, and that got me into it, and been at it ever since. I sort of think in a way it becomes a part of who you are and what you are, and almost a way of life. Okay, well, that sort of brings me around to pretty much wrapping it up. And all that's left is for me to say thank you to everybody that have popped in. There's been many people. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Mags. Thank you, Louise, Claire, Michael, DW, Squatching. We've had Steve in. We've also had Nudge. We've had lots of other people have come in. Thank you very much, Manda. Appreciate you calling in, Rose. And if I've missed anybody, I apologise. I know that there has been more. And it's truly appreciate that you spent any time with us whatsoever. And I'd also like to thank the people that have made it tonight. So a big thanks to Lindsay for coming on and giving his points of view on the relevant topics that have come out of my head, and subjecting himself to this absolute madness. A big thank you to Steve Jackson there, who's a part of Tameside Paranormal Researchers. It's been very good to have him on the stream. Hopefully he will come back. It will be nice to be able to have you back on, Steve, if you're up for that.
Definitely, mate. Definitely come back on.
Sorry for the I got a peach while I was on.
Yeah, no problem. And a big thank you to Steve from Haunted Experiences there. He streams a lot. Obviously, majority of people will already know where Steve's at, but if you don't, go and check out Haunted Experiences. Steve's got a lot of experience in investigating the paranormal and conducting various experiences at his location, as well as a builder of paranormal equipment and bits and bats. So thank you for everybody that's popped in. And we're going to say goodbye. I'll keep hold of you for a couple of minutes afterwards in the private chat, guys, before we call it. But thank you very much to everybody. You are what makes this kind of thing happen. So keep banging the rocks together and keep staying safe. Thanks very much. We're out. Peace.
Bye.